I'm Harold Whitcomb, 72 this May. I build things. I keep things standing. That's been true most of my life. Roofs, fences, porches, marriages. And today, it's true again. They handed me a microphone. A few words from the father of the bride the MC announced. I walked toward the head table, not in a rush. The sun was kind above the white canopy, and Lake Forest had just started to hum with June green. Rowena smiled tight. My daughter's second wedding, first one, barely lasted 3 years, and she looked good in ivory again. Richard the groom straightened his collar but didn't meet my eyes. I took the mic, thanked the guests, then set a slim leather folder down beside the champagne flutes. I didn't clear my throat. I didn't need to. I was going to give a toast, I said. But it turns out today calls for something else. A small act of protection. For the future of my granddaughter. The room shifted. I could feel the waiters slow the cousin's pause mid-bite. You don't interrupt a wedding toast with words like protection unless you mean it. Let me take you back 4 days. I was on my porch, real wood, built it with my own hands after retirement when my phone buzzed. My banking app lit up wire transfer $17,800, 2:14 p.m. I hadn't wired a cent. Same hour my Ring camera pinged. I opened the clip. A tall man with a realtor's badge unlocked my front gate. 2 others followed behind him, walked up my steps, turned the smart lock like they owned it. I rewound, watched again. Same moves, same confidence. I didn't recognize any of them. That night while eating leftover pot roast, I got a screenshot from a neighbor. He said, "You should see this." It was from the family group chat Rowena's side. I wasn't on it. Never had been. The image showed a message from Richard. If we can close quick on her dad's place, we can float the wedding cost up front. The buyer won't check county records too hard. Below it, someone had replied with a laughing emoji and, "You're wild, but smart." The pot roast sat cold after that. I called Evan my lawyer. Young guy, but sharp and measured. He didn't panic. He listened, then said, "We have options, Harold. You've got a valid Inter Vivos trust. Let's make it ironclad. We'll file a codicil. I'll notarize it in person. And we can freeze any escrow linked to the property until we verify who authorized what." He paused. "One more thing, check the county clerk's site tonight. Look under land records." I did. There it was. A draft quitclaim deed uploaded under my address dated 3 days earlier. The signature looked like mine if you squinted or if you copied it off a plumbing invoice. The name beside mine, Richard Hale. The next morning, Evan drove up from Chicago with a notary. We sat on my porch. I signed a codicil confirming my controlling interest in the family trust. I also authorized Evan as a conditional power of attorney active only in the event of proven fraud or unauthorized legal action tied to my estate. He slid me another document. "This is the escrow freeze. I've notified the title company and your bank. This will stall any transaction trying to sneak under radar." I thanked him. He smiled. "You still want to go to the wedding?" "I'll be there," I said, "but I'm bringing paperwork, not presents." Which brings us back to today. Under the white canopy, I looked toward the cake table, then back at my daughter. Before we all toast, I said I'd like to share something. I pulled out the 3 printed pages. "The first is a notification from my bank," I said, voice level. $17,800 wired without my authorization. The second is a still frame from my Ring camera showing a man entering my home with a realtor badge. And the third is a screenshot of a group chat where my son-in-law discusses closing quick on my house to pay for this wedding. You could hear a button drop on the grass. I held up a 4th page. "This," I said, "is a codicil to my living trust notarized 2 days ago. It reaffirms my legal control over the Whitcomb property and assigns emergency legal power to my attorney." I turned to the event manager. "Ma'am, I request you halt all transactions linked to this event until we confirm the source of funds is clean. The escrow involved may be under fraud review." Richard stood up. "You're making a mistake," he said low. I looked at him. "I'm making a statement," I said. And then I smiled just a little, because my phone buzzed again. The subject line read, "HOA violation fine notice." The message was clear. Unauthorized signage on lawn. Realtor presence without approval. Fine $42. I turned my screen to the crowd. Seems the homeowners association noticed too. Laughter cracked uncertain around the tent. But the point had landed. I folded the papers back into my folder, set the mic down, and walked to my seat. No toast, no applause. Just a man protecting his porch and the future that sits on it. The wedding didn't stop. at least not the music. The quartet played something soft and forgettable as the servers moved trays of shrimp skewers from table to table. But under the tent, tension had settled like lake fog. I sat back down at my table folder resting on my lap. I didn't eat, I watched. Across the lawn, Evan stood like a still tree near the hydrangeas, his suit just rumpled enough to look trustworthy. He nodded once at me. Behind him, a man in a dark blue jacket with a county seal on his chest adjusted the strap of his leather case. Not a cop, not a guard, just a man who'd seen too many paper crimes. "Mr. Whitcomb," the event manager whispered, crouching beside me like we were planning a heist. "You've requested a payment halt." I handed her the envelope. Inside was a signed instruction from my bank place: immediate hold on all disbursements connected to escrow account ending in 9941 pending internal investigation. She flipped the page once, checked the letterhead, and didn't say another word. Her eyes moved over the ring of guests, calculating the order of her next 10 steps. I didn't envy her job today. "Is this for the whole event?" she asked softly. "Only the portions that drew from that escrow," I said. "The bar tab might still be safe." She gave a ghost of a smile, stood up, and walked toward the billing tent. Richard followed her, moving like a man trying to look casual and failing. Rowena stayed seated. Her knuckles were white against her wine glass. Evan approached the head table. "Sir," he said formally, "for everyone to hear, would you like me to initiate lien language if further sale attempts are made?" "No need just yet," I replied, "but have it ready." The man beside him, the fraud unit rep, nodded. "We'll want statements after this concludes," he said. "But you've done the right thing. Not many people catch quit claims mid-air." "That's because most people don't read their bank alerts," I said. He chuckled and moved off quietly, disappearing behind a row of topiaries. Back at the table, I noticed a cousin pretending not to look at me. People whispered behind folded hands the way they always do when something noble and uncomfortable has happened. I took a sip of lukewarm water and scanned the guests. Somewhere in that crowd, someone else had known. Someone had screenshotted that group chat. That kind of truth doesn't leak on its own. It doesn't matter now. Richard returned face, tight tie, looser than before. He leaned down near Rowena and hissed something I didn't catch. She shook her head once slowly. Then she stood. She crossed the lawn heels, sinking into the grass, and stopped in front of me like a student unsure of her own defense. "Dad," she said, voice low, "we didn't mean for this to look bad." "Did it feel good?" I asked. "Planning it." Her eyes welled but didn't spill. "Richard thought we could float the reception cost and repay it after the house closed. He didn't think you'd notice. He said you weren't using the property anymore." "That's funny," I said. "I made tea there this morning." She pressed her lips together. "It's not what it looks like." "No," I said. "It's exactly what it looks like. It's a quitclaim deed with my signature forged, a wire transfer you didn't report, and a group chat you didn't think would surface." Silence sat between us. "Rowena," I said gently, "I built that house with my own hands. I rewired the entire upstairs after your mother died. I added the porch when you got into college. And when we had that ice storm, I slept by the fireplace with buckets lining the kitchen." "I know," she whispered. "Then you should know this too. I won't let that place become someone else's pawn just because Richard wanted an open bar and an ice sculpture shaped like a swan." "Ice dragon," she corrected, and then caught herself. I gave her a look. She smiled despite herself, wiped her eye with a napkin, and turned to go. Not a full apology, but maybe the beginning of one. The event manager returned, tablet in hand. "Mr. Whitcomb, the payments connected to that escrow have been paused," she said. "Do you wish to cancel the event?" "No," I said. "Let them get married. Let them dance. Just not on stolen funds." She nodded and left. A waiter approached nervously and offered me a slice of cake. I declined. My phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from the county clerk's office. "Your inquiry regarding quitclaim deed under parcel 786 has been reviewed. Signature is inconsistent with records on file. Document placed on hold." A quiet victory. No fanfare, just an official notice. I leaned back, feeling something in my chest shift, not pride, not revenge, just the quiet release of something held too long. The quartet transitioned into Vivaldi. The photographer resumed his rounds. The tent resumed its rhythm. But under it all, the floor had changed. My house was safe, the trust held, the control had shifted back to where it belonged. To me. By the time the entrees arrived, prime rib or salmon I think, though I didn't eat the wedding, had resumed its external shape. Music played. Plates clinked. Guests danced around the sudden silence that had interrupted things just a half hour earlier. But under the tent, the air wasn't the same. Truth has a way of lingering. I sat beneath the arch of White Rose's legs crossed folder in my lap. A part of me wondered if it was overkill to bring the notary to a wedding. But then I remembered the name on the quitclaim deed, and the $17,800 that had vanished before reappearing thanks to a wire reversal now pending at my bank. No bringing the notary was restraint. Evan walked over now, less attorney, more friend. County confirmed what we expected, he said, handing me a printout. Deed's invalid. Signature mismatch confirmed. They've put it on hold. And the escrow freeze, I asked. In place. No title transfers, no realtor movement, no closing attempts. You put the brakes on just in time. I exhaled the kind of breath you don't notice until your chest finally moves again. What's next? I asked. He looked across the lawn to where Richard stood near the bar, one hand gripped around a whiskey glass like it owed him something. Depends on how loud he gets, Evan said, or how desperate. A server passed offering crab cakes. I took one. Even a man in a war suit has to eat. Behind me, I heard someone mutter. He lawyered up mid-toast. Another replied, that old man's house must be worth a fortune. They weren't wrong. A month earlier, I had the place appraised. 2 Febe Trier-de-la was the estimate, not counting the undeveloped parcel I'd kept wooded. I'd done it not for sale, but for insurance reasons. And now it was what they'd aimed to seize. I turned my attention to my phone. A new email had arrived from a friend in the HOA board. Subject line, just for your information, Richard's realtor license. Attached a public disciplinary notice from the state. A suspension, 2 years ago. Falsified client signatures. So he'd done this before. I forwarded it to Evan, who simply replied, add to file. On the stage, the DJ announced the couple's first dance. Rowena hesitated before stepping forward. Her eyes met mine across the floor. I gave a nod, not of approval but permission. Let her dance. Let her hope even now that something pure remained. The man she chose to marry would answer for his own decisions. As they danced, I called Evan back. I want you to initiate formation of the Whitcomb Family LLC, I said. He raised an eyebrow. You're ready? More than ready, I said. The trust holds the assets, but I want a second layer, an LLC with 51% voting control in my name. I'll put the real estate and portfolio assets under it. And the rest? Education sub-trusts, I said. For my grandkids, locked until they're 25. No early disbursements, no loans against it. They earn it the hard way, or they don't touch it. He smiled. Thought you'd go soft after the second toast. I only toast once, I said. The rest is accounting. The music swelled. Somewhere glasses clinked, but I wasn't listening anymore. Another notification buzzed, a next-door thread from the neighborhood. Headline, Who's the Stranger? Entering Mr. Whitcomb's porch last Thursday. Screenshot the exact Ring camera image I'd printed earlier. The man in the badge, the strangers behind him. Comments had piled up. He didn't look like family. Pretty sure that's a lockbox from Carlton Realty. Why would a realtor visit that house? Mr. Whitcomb's lived there since the 70s. Community moves fast when it senses foul play. That thread had over 70 replies in 2 hours. I posted once under my name, no sale authorized. All activity under legal review. Appreciate the vigilance, neighbors. Someone replied with a thumbs up emoji. Another posted a cherry pie emoji. I smiled. Our block always did believe in food over fences. That small thread would turn out to be one of the most useful levers. Within 24 hours, the agent shown in the clip reached out to my lawyer directly. Said he'd been misled by family representatives and offered to pull his involvement if we didn't press charges. We didn't. But we documented everything. By the time dessert was served, mini creme brulees and chocolate-dipped figs, the estate was locked in 5 ways. Trust, codicil, escrow, freeze, LLC, control, and community oversight. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like sealing the roof before a storm. Richard didn't approach me again that night, but he would later. By the time the band started its second set, the tension had moved underground. People smiled more, drank more, but the looks hadn't softened. I saw the way they glanced toward my table, quick, guilty flickers, like children wondering whether the grown-up was still watching. I was. Not out of spite, but habit. You don't build things that last by trusting appearances. Evan returned with an update. "I've filed the LLC papers," he said, sliding me a copy on his phone. "State accepted the formation. You now hold 51% voting control over Whitcomb Family Holdings LLC. The trust has been restructured under its umbrella." I nodded. "List both the house and the undeveloped lot under Asset Line 1. Move the portfolio positions under Line 2. And the education sub-trusts." "Created," he said. "Each grandchild gets one. Unlocks at 25. Probate-proofed and sealed." That part mattered to me more than the rest. I didn't fight for this to punish anyone. I did it because my grandchildren, Lucy and Theo, deserved more than a family built on sleight of hand. Rowena hadn't spoken to me since her quiet confession near the stage. She'd danced once eaten little and stayed close to her bridesmaids. I didn't blame her for being shaken. I blamed her for knowing and staying quiet. But the night was still young. My phone buzzed again, this time from the Nextdoor app. The thread about the mystery realtor had gone viral across Lake Forest. "Who gave this man a lock code? Security cam shows him entering at 2:14 p.m. Isn't that the same time the Whitcomb Bank alert went off? My cousin says he forged a signature on a condo sale last year." That last comment came with a screenshot, a local news clipping from 2 years prior. Richard Hale's name in bold. Accusation: real estate fraud. Outcome: license suspended, settlement paid, records sealed. But the internet remembers. I sent the screenshot to Evan, who simply replied, "Pattern of behavior. Very useful." Another thread emerged. A neighbor had spoken to the ring-captured realtor. Turns out the man didn't know who Harold Whitcomb was. He'd been told the owner was hospitalized, incapacitated, and under proxy management. That was the final straw. Evan drafted a formal statement for the county clerk's fraud division, citing intent to file a lien on the property if further unauthorized activity resumed. He also activated our POA trigger clause, limited power of attorney now in his hands, if any legal challenge arose against my trust or deed filings. This was no longer about defense. It was reinforcement. "Still want to stay at the reception?" Evan asked. "I'm staying until the cake," I said. "Then I'm going home. I've got a porch that needs restaining." He smiled. "You always were a man of routine." "I build things that hold," I said. "That's routine." We walked the perimeter of the tent as discreetly as old lions. No growl, just presence. A few guests stopped us, men I'd worked alongside on town committees, women who'd brought casseroles when my wife passed. Each one said the same thing: "Harold, I don't know what happened, but you did the right thing." It wasn't approval I was after, but it helped. Back at my seat, a waiter brought me a slice of wedding cake. Chocolate too sweet, 3 layers thick. I took one bite and left the rest. On the plate beside it, the folded copy of the HOA memo still sat, $42 due. Violation: unapproved realtor signage. A fine that felt like satire. I tapped to pay it online, wrote "paid by owner" in the memo, and smiled. Little things count. Rowena passed me once more that evening, her hand in Richard's eyes, flickering with something between regret and resentment. I didn't speak, neither did she. But she glanced down at the table, saw the documents, and paused for half a second. Recognition. She knew this wasn't just a display. It was a wall she couldn't pass through. Across the tent, I saw the event manager speaking with Richard again. Her shoulders were straight, but her tone was cold. She nodded toward me once. Richard shook his head, walked away. Let him. That night, as the final song played and the candles dimmed, Evan leaned over. "Do you want me to file the county monitor notice?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Let's make sure anything tied to this estate flags me, not anyone else." Done. We left before the sparklers, before the send-off, before whatever words Richard had prepared for the car ride home. Back at the house, I unlocked the porch door and sat with a mug of black tea. Ring camera chirped. Nothing but squirrels this time. I watched the screen for a while anyway, just to remember what peace looked like. I woke the next morning to 2 things: birds on the gutter and a message from Evan. Subject confirmed, wire reversal complete. Body $17,800 returned to account, ending in 9941. Fraud report closed in your favor. Escrow remains frozen. I nodded to no one in particular, poured a fresh cup of tea, and took it to the porch. The Ring camera light blinked once, just motion from a neighbor's dog, and I let it record. There's comfort in knowing your quiet is being witnessed. I checked my phone again. Overnight, the Nextdoor post had made it beyond Lake Forest. The community thread had been picked up by a Chicago real estate blogger. Article headline: Retired builder stops fraud at daughter's wedding using ring cam and HOA fine. Sensational, sure, but it told the truth. There were now hundreds of comments. Some folks were laughing about the $42 fine. Others praised the old guy with the folder. A few even tried to find my mailing address to send pie. But one comment stood out. I used to work with Richard Hale. He tried to pull this on my grandmother's duplex in Oak Park. Attached was a screenshot of an internal email from Hale Realty Group, an old forwarded thread labeled "Urgent Cleanup Signature before clerk sees it." I stared at it for a long time. Evidence. I forwarded it to Evan with a single note, "Stack it." He replied 3 minutes later, "This confirms intent. Not just sloppy, this was planned." Later that morning, I received a call from the fraud unit officer who'd attended the wedding. "We'll be sending you a formal statement packet, Mr. Whitcomb," he said. "But informally, you stopped a felony-grade event from unfolding. The fake quitclaim, the forged escrow, pushed the unauthorized wire. Each of those crosses a line." "What happens next?" I asked. "That depends," he said. "Richard Hale has 3 options: deny, delay, or disappear. Most people pick all 3 in some order." I thanked him, hung up, and placed the phone on the windowsill. Then I heard the front gate creak. Richard. Alone. No suit, no tie, just a man in slacks and a shirt still wrinkled from last night's dance floor. He stood at the base of the porch steps, hands in pockets. "Can we talk?" he asked. "You're standing on public sidewalk," I said. "Talk away." He sighed. "I'm not here to fight." "No, Richard," I said. "You fought already. You just did it in group chats, bank apps, and a forged signature." "I made a mistake," he said. "You made a plan," I corrected. "You just didn't plan on getting caught." He blinked, said nothing. "The house," he finally muttered. "It's just sitting there. You live alone. You've got more than you need." "You're not wrong," I said. "But you confuse possession with permission. I built that place. And if I choose to let it sit empty, that's still more honorable than signing away what isn't mine." He stepped forward, 1 step too close. Ring camera clicked. I raised a hand. "You come up those stairs and I'll interpret that as harassment. You'll be on video, audio, and HOA record before your second foot hits the top step." He froze, then backed off. "What do you want?" he asked. "I already got it," I said. "The reversal, the freeze, the exposure. You're a shadow now. Your license is gone. Your name flagged. My trust is sealed. My LLC is formed, and your part in this is printed on paper in 3 separate county departments." He swallowed. "Your wife," he started. "My daughter," I interrupted. He nodded, adjusted his cuff, and turned without another word. The next day, Evans submitted the final lien preparation package. Not to activate, but to hold just in case Richard or anyone connected to him made another move. He also delivered physical copies of the amended trust documents, LLC ownership certificates, and the county clerk's fraud findings, all neatly stamped. My estate, valued at approximately 2 Fay Trier de la, was now protected by a structure that no WhatsApp scheme could shake. That night, Rowena texted me. It wasn't an apology, not really, more like a blur of explanations and regret. I didn't know everything. He told me it was just a shortcut. I was scared about the cost. I wanted to believe him. I stared at the blinking cursor. Then typed, "Love doesn't give you permission to lie, but truth gives you permission to return when you're ready. My porch light is on, but the lock is mine." She never replied, but she read it. I know because the scene indicator lit up. That was enough for now. The next morning, a courier dropped off a cardboard envelope. Inside, a refund check from the country club, partial reversal of the wedding deposit, along with a handwritten note from the event manager. "You handled things with more grace than we deserved. Enclosed are unused funds from escrow, remainder covered by groom's family." Below it, she'd added, "P.S. The HOA fine is marked paid, but I kept the receipt. It's pinned in the break room. Quiet strength is underrated." I smiled. Sometimes the smallest documents tell the biggest stories. 3 days after the wedding, the amended trust papers arrived by courier. I signed them at the kitchen table with a cup of lukewarm coffee and a pencil behind my ear. Some habits don't fade just because the world moves faster. Evan had included everything. The Whitcomb Family Trust was now nested under the Whitcomb Family LLC, with me holding 51% voting control. The codicil had been filed with the county and added to my existing will. The POA clause, conditional, narrow, precise, was registered and mirrored with a backup document kept at Evan's firm. Most importantly, the education sub-trusts for Lucy and Theo had been activated, each one locked until the age of 25 with guardrails tighter than a federal grant. It wasn't just legal armor, it was the map to a legacy. I placed the documents in my safe. Then I stood by the hallway mirror and looked at myself, shirt-tucked, beard trimmed, folder in hand. I looked like a notary's nightmare and a fraudster's worst day. The phone rang, not a spam call this time. It was the country club's senior events manager. Same woman who'd watched me cancel part of a wedding mid-toast. "Mr. Whitcomb," she began, careful. "I just wanted to say, we've never seen anything like that. And I mean that in a good way." "I doubt the groom's family agrees," I said. Actually, she hesitated. The groom's family asked to assume full remaining payment. "We returned your escrow-linked portion. They said they didn't want any further conflict." "Smart move." They also asked, she continued, whether they should expect legal contact. "That depends on whether they were involved," I said. There was a pause. "They didn't seem surprised," she added. I thanked her, hung up, and went to the porch. I sat in the rocker I built after my wife passed slats still smooth from time and weather. The Ring camera blinked once as the wind moved a branch. Everything quiet. Until a knock on the mailbox. It was the HOA envelope. Inside a single sheet marked "Paid in Full," rubber stamped in red. A yellow sticky note attached read, "Mr. Whitcomb, we've removed your house from the realtor alert list. Nice move with the codicil. We've never seen that used at a wedding before." I chuckled. There was power in small bureaucracy. When you used it right, it wasn't petty, it was surgical. Later that afternoon, Evan stopped by for tea. We sat outside, no papers between us for once. "She hasn't reached out again?" he asked. "Rowena, no." "You think she will?" "Eventually," I said. "Guilt has its own clock." He nodded, then asked what came next. "Nothing," I said. "That's the point. We're done reacting. We've restructured. The trust is sealed, the LLC holds, and all the loose keys are out of circulation." "Even Richard?" he asked. "Especially Richard." We didn't need to say what we both knew. His name was now tagged in the county's internal red flag system. Any future real estate action under his name, even peripherally, would trigger a review. If he tried anything again, the lien preparation file was ready. Filed, stamped, templated, just needed a date. "He'll vanish," I said. "People like that don't take responsibility. They take routes, until all the roads close." Evan nodded, then stood. "You ever think about selling?" I looked around. The porch, the oak tree, the railing I'd carved Rowena's name into when she turned 10. "Every week," I said. "But then I remember what this house has seen. It's not just wood, it's memory, and memory, like law, doesn't fade if you reinforce it right." He smiled, shook my hand, and left. That night I sat down and drafted a final addendum to the trust summary. One paragraph written longhand to be digitized later. "In the event of future challenge, remember this estate is not just an asset, it is a container of history. No document, no party, no bloodline grants right to deceive. Power is not in who signs, it's in who safeguards the meaning behind the ink." I slept well. No calls. No alerts. No more shadows trying to creep across the property line. Just the Ring camera watching squirrels, the tea cooling next to the ledger, and a house that belonged again to the one who built it. The thing about silence is it lingers longer than applause. After the legal dust settled, and the club returned the balance from the escrow, and the Ring camera no longer caught strangers sniffing around my porch, what remained was stillness. No calls, no messages, no apology that meant anything. Rowena hadn't come back. She hadn't even asked for the keys back. And I didn't chase her. Some people take your silence as peace. Others mistake it for surrender. But those who've weathered enough storms know quiet is where the most decisive things happen. It had been 5 days since the wedding. I had restained the porch railing, filed away the stamped documents, and organized the codicil copies into a fireproof box. One evening, I even climbed into the attic to pull down a crate of old photographs, ones Rowena hadn't seen since her mother passed. The box smelled like dust and cedar. I flipped through images of her with birthday balloons, a cast on her arm from that rollerblading summer, her high school graduation dress hanging 2 sizes too large. I wanted to remember the part of her untouched by this. But memory cuts both ways. That night, just before midnight, my phone lit up. "Rowena." Her message was short. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know I didn't sign anything. I didn't know about the quitclaim until after it was sent. I let it happen because I wanted the wedding to be easy. But I see now what that cost you, what it cost me. She didn't ask for money, or a meeting, or a second chance. She just needed to say it. I stared at the screen for a long time, then typed. I never asked for easy, I asked for honest. You're still my daughter. But trust, like lumber, takes time to cure again after it's been soaked in rot. No reply. But she read it. The little scene indicator glowed like a blinking lighthouse. I didn't need more than that. The next morning I brewed coffee and stepped out onto the porch. Birds had scattered the feeder again. I swept the steps, poured another cup. The mail came just before noon, mostly junk. But one manila envelope stood out. It was from the HOA. Inside was a printed copy of the full violation report realtor signage, without approval, unauthorized home access, and community disturbance. The fine, they reminded me, had already been paid $42, cleared by card ending in 2146. At the bottom, handwritten in pen, thanks for reminding the neighborhood that paper is more powerful than shouting. We've updated our realtor registry policy because of your case. Funny. Most people think big change requires speeches. Truth is, it often starts with a bank alert, a ring clip, and a single notarized page. Later that day, Evan sent over the final digital packet, every document organized and cross-linked, archived in secure cloud folders with encrypted backups for the trust, the LLC, the codicil, and the POA terms. I've never had a client win a war during a wedding, he wrote, but I'll be citing you in lectures for years. I replied with one sentence, just send me the invoice, not the applause. He didn't. Instead, he sent pie. Cherry. From a bakery he knew I liked. I ate it on the porch that night as the sun dipped behind the hedges. The Ring camera caught the golden light. The birds had quieted. The house was still. At 7:30 my phone buzzed. A notification from the county clerk. All title actions on file for parcel 786 now reflect updated trust control. LLC ownership acknowledged. No pending disputes. That was the final nail, quiet, buried in admin language but permanent. I put the phone down, reached into my folder, pulled out one last item, the original flyer for the wedding printed on ivory cardstock. It listed the date, the venue, the dress code, and a note at the bottom. This union is built on love and trust. I stared at it, folded it once, then slid it into the fireplace. No drama. Just closure. Some fires aren't meant to warm. They're meant to clear the air. 2 weeks after the wedding, I changed the smart lock on the front door. Not out of fear. Out of principle. The old access code, one I'd given to Rowena years ago, back when she used to stop by after grocery runs, was now history. I didn't revoke it in anger. I simply acknowledged a shift. The same way a builder accepts that an old hinge has worn down and needs replacing. You don't shame the door. You change the lock. The new code existed only in my head, and Evan's legal archive embedded in a sealed PDF alongside the POA trust language and LLC charter. 2 Febe Trier de la now lived under that digital and legal roof, no keys in circulation, no open back doors. Inside the house looked the same. Books still alphabetized, porch cushions still lined up just so. My wife's photo still on the mantel, angled slightly toward the window, as she always preferred. But the foundation beneath it all had been rebuilt. Structurally, emotionally, legally. That morning I signed the final additions to the LLC oversight package, including automatic county clerk monitoring, ensuring any future title or deed activity under my name triggered both legal and personal notification. The trust's terms had been expanded. No beneficiaries could access core property unless they passed an ethics review. Written, notarized, and backed by Evan's office. My grandchildren's subtrusts sat clean and untouchable until they turned 25, each with clauses requiring full-time employment, 0 liens, and no criminal record. Was it strict? Yes. But love without boundaries is just sentiment. I wasn't raising sentiment, I was crafting structure. At sunset, I brewed a final cup of tea and returned to the porch. The Ring camera blinked once. Nothing unusual, just a neighbor's cat on the railing. I opened my notebook, real paper leather cover, the same one I'd used when I built the cedar shed out back, and I wrote one final note to whoever might find it someday. To my children, grandchildren, and anyone who thinks silence is weakness. I did not speak loudly because I had documents that did the talking. I did not knock on doors because I had locks that didn't open to thieves. And I did not beg for understanding, because clarity when notarized does not require permission. If you ever wonder why the house was never sold, why the money was never missing, and why the truth held, look to the signatures, the timestamps, the clauses written in plain ink. They were not dramatic. They were decisive. And in this house, that is enough. The porch light flicked on behind me. Motion sensor, soft and golden. The same way I remembered it when I installed it 15 years ago. Somewhere in the distance, wind chimes rang. Rowena hadn't called again. That was all right. Not all endings are made with reunions. Some are made with reinforcement. The kind you don't see but feel every time your feet cross a threshold and the floor doesn't creak, because someone somewhere once measured the joists carefully. I finished my tea, closed the notebook, sat back in the chair I'd rebuilt last fall after a squirrel chewed through the slats. And I smiled. Because nothing had been taken. Only tested. And everything that mattered had held.